If your bike feels uncomfortable or you're riding slower than you should be, your position could be holding you back. In this video, you'll discover simple bike fit tweaks that can help you ride faster, more efficiently, and without pain. Hi, I'm Phil Mosley from MyProCoach, and today I'm handing over to my colleague, Gritton, who'll be chatting with one of the world's top bike fitters, Phil Burt. He's worked with Olympic gold medalists and Tour de France winners, and he's here with us to explain how small bike fit changes can make a big difference to your comfort and performance.
Nice one. Thank you so much for joining us, Phil. I'm really excited to get chatting to you. We are going to be talking about the 3 simple bike position fixes for instant speed and comfort. So let's have a quick chat then about what's holding us back when it comes to our bike position, Phil. What are sort of the main things we're looking for?
I sometimes frame this in the context of the bike fit window, which is what the terminology came up with in my book. And is that everybody has a window, and it might resonate with some of your viewers and listeners that window is pretty big when we're younger, so you can jump on anything when you're younger, make it work, because we're flexible, we're pliable, we're strong. That window definitely changes with age and definitely changes with injury, and it gets a bit narrow when the goals you're trying to achieve get harder and harder, so landing in that ideal optimal position is sometimes harder than it sometimes requires more effort than just knowing that. So my great analogy in my book is that I use this term about micro adjusters and macro absorbers. The macro absorbers out there probably don't think bike fit's that important, because they're generally the people who get away with training, any training plan, they'll adapt to it. They're very adaptable people. It doesn't mean they're optimal. And that my classic quote with that is Geraint Thomas riding half a stage of the Tour de France apparently on the wrong spare bike. Now, he didn't break, he didn't get injured, but it wasn't his position, and he probably was losing power somewhere along that. But he made it work. And then the micro adjusters are on us. They're the sort of people where, if your saddle moves 1 degree or half a millimeter, about it, and it causes a pain problem, or you feel like you're not optimal. So my big thing is is that sometimes you need to. What you don't know is that, am I as good as I can be? Am I leaving Am I working harder than I need to? And have I got the handbrake on my bike, on my performance? Because I'm trying to work around something that isn't quite right for me. So that's where sometimes investigating is your position the best it can be is really worthwhile. I mean, our mentor in the clinic is always like, we want people to spend money, time, and effort where it's going to make a difference.
You've obviously seen a lot of people making mistakes. I'm sure you get lots of weird and wonderful things arriving in your clinic. What are the kind of 3 main mistakes you see from most people? Okay,
3 main mistakes. Really pushing me there, man. Okay, so I would say saddle height or saddle position, yeah? So it's height, the tilt of the saddle and the setback. Your saddle should never be nose up, if you ask me. That'll fix your pelvis, cause loads of issues. Don't know of any saddle designed to be used like that. I think where it is in terms of how far back and how high it is really important to affect your reach to the front of the bike. And not only that, but how powerful and comfortable you are on it. So that's the first one, saddle position. Second one, crank length. People buy the bike, but it has the wrong crank length for them. All right. Now that gets more important the older we get, because our hips tend to tighten up. Put my physio hat on. It's the first joint really that gets really stiff, because we only stood up about 1 million years ago. And it can really, crank length can be such a game-changing parameter to allow you to get your best and optimal position and stay in a relatively good aero aggressive position, which gets harder as we get older. And the last one would be handlebar width. Again, one of the finishing points. Generally, people are having the wrong, too wide handlebars, because that's what the bike came with, and that really affects the comfort. Can give you numb hands, affects your reach, and people tend to start to shorten everything up trying to solve it. Where in actual fact, the red herring it's the width of the bars.
Interesting. Yeah. So I mean, you've already mentioned that the hand position there and things that they might be feeling. Are there any other sort of signs that people have got things wrong, for example? So I don't know if you notice, when the saddle's up, they're getting back pain or something.
Most people should, if your position optimal, you should be able to cycle for 2 hours without really feeling things. That's my threshold. And when you come south of that and you say I'm already getting back pain or saddle sore, or my hands are going more and more numb, things like this. These are the common things that people see, or my knees are hurting. So the common issues that I think you find is say, for example, you find it really hard to maintain even a relatively modest cadence. For example, say I've been told I should cycle at 90 by my coach, but I find it really hard. That's a big sign that maybe you're sitting too low, closing the hip up too much, or the crank length's too long and forcing you. So that's that slowness over top dead center. That's a big thing. Rocking. So if you find that I rock, people say I look really unstable on the bike. That might be like your saddle height's too high, or again, your crank length's too long, so you're having to absorb that at the top of the pedal stroke. So they're the common things. And then, like I say, anything where I really discourage people, like, it's, if you cycle 100 miles, it's gonna, you might have a bit of a stiff back when you get off. You might have numb hand down again. But my golden rule is all that should be gone by the next day. So I think if you're taking things back onto the bike the day afterwards, and things are getting, say you're doing consecutive days riding and things are getting worse and worse, that's a sign that maybe either you or your position needs to look at.
Interesting. So, I mean, it's that time of year now where a lot of people are going from like the turbo going outside. And one of the things I'm hearing a lot from a lot of people is like sore necks. They're like in that TT position and they're sort of getting that sore neck, trying to keep their head up and looking at the screens, I guess, indoors, and then trying to maintain that position outside. I mean, is there like an easy solve to a problem like that to get more comfortable?
Yeah, well, it's specifically what you're talking about. You're absolutely right. And it's because when we get indoors, there's plenty of people who have an awesome TT position looking down at the floor, which is, and it's hard not to do that inside, but you have to have, that's what I would call positional discipline, So if you're indoors, you should be, and you want to transfer that to outdoors. And let's face it, time trialing, the hardest bit for me about time trialing, once you have it's like looking at the ceiling constantly, And if you paint your ceiling today, you won't be surprised to have a stiff neck. So my big thing with that would be positional discipline. Like if you're indoors and you're training hard on a TT, make sure you're looking up, because your muscles in your neck will get stronger and you'll get used to it. But the big thing would be with that is actually some mobility, So thoracic foam rollering. If you get your thoracic spine, which is your middle back, more mobile, easier to extend your neck off it, and that can make a big difference to people. But the big thing is, if all that's happening and it's still happening, then the general thing I find is that people have got to disappear down the rabbit hole of going as low as they can at the front to be as aero as they can, which is generally true. But it gets to a certain point where it's what would you say? It's diminishing returns. You are more aero, but if you're moving out of that pocket every 5 minutes because your neck's hurting, then it's not that aero.
Of course, yeah. So I love the mention there of like loosening up the thoracic spine as like a little bit of a home hack. Have you got any other like home hacks that you would recommend people could do for like very little cost that will help them get more comfortable on the bike?
Yeah, I think hip mobility is a big one. So I feel like if the hip is mobile, it'll take strain off your back and enable you to roll your pelvis forward. So keeping your hips flexible is a real. So things like I call a modified Bulgarian stretch. It's where you have your leg behind you. You go. It's modified Bulgarian squat. Sorry, you go into that position, holding that. I'm not a physio who likes to give people 26 different exercises that take them forever to do. But if you do 3 things, golden bullet exercise, I said again, I think stretching your hip flexors after you get off the bike, it was something like that, a modified Bulgarian skate is a really good thing to do. Our hip flexors don't get hyped because we use them in cycling. It's a tiny muscle compared to the quad and the glute pushing down the other side, but they do sit in a range. So loosening them off can reduce low back pain and stiffness, and that can be really cumulative. So keeping on top of that, if you trigger point ball your glute, that is working on the other side of the hip, so that they work in conjunction really, really well. And I do think, thoracic. I think if you look at cycling's great because there's no eccentric quarters in it, so plenty of people cycle far longer than they run, but it does have a positional in position, so you're in one posture. So when you get off the bike, you've been hunched over like Montgomery Burns for 5 hours. Reverse the Montgomery Burns, get on your foam roller. So I would say those 3 things: trigger point ball your glutes, stretch your hip flexors, and get on your foam roller thing, and just do them after you've had a shower. If you commit 10 minutes to that every time you come back from a ride, you're going to be in a better place than if you didn't.
Superb. That's great to hear. And I'm going to push you for one more question. So let's say you've got someone, not necessarily brand new to cycling, but you've got someone that's come to see you for the very first time. What are the first 3 things you'll check when they're on a bike that people might be able to check when they're at home right now?
I think that's one of the ones we mentioned is that your saddle should never be nose up, and some people it just slips and they don't realise that. It's one of 3 cheesy checks is that's a good one. So if you're on shorter than a 90 stem or longer than a 140, I think you might be on the wrong size bike, or you're trying to solve something in terms of reach, and that's my parameter there. Yeah. So EV soles, if you're coming short or longer than that, might be like, hold on a minute. Is this the right setup for me to get around that? You know, second one would be, if you struggle with really tight hips after you get off the bike, find that you rock and find to maintain a high cadence, consider reducing your crank length 100%. Yeah. If you find that you get numb hands quicker than you think would be normal, and that numbness gets more and more, really consider your handlebar position, especially width and reach, you know, but width first of all. People can look in the mirror. A really easy tip of self-tip is, if you're training indoors and you have a mirror or sort of video in front of you, your hand should be in line with your middle of your shoulder, your acromion joint. So if your hands are outside your shoulders, it's generally a sign that maybe your handlebar is a bit too wide, and that's why you're getting that problem.
Interesting, good stuff. And is there any other thing you would recommend that people could do at home?
There are now these other things coming where you can get a bike fit at home, where you can record yourself with things like MyVeloFit, where then somebody can look at that and knows what they're looking at and help guide you. You know, sometimes we need that objectivity outside. You know, something's a bit more complicated. It could be that, you know, you just need a little bit of help because there might be an old injury in the background there that is complicating you getting into the right position. And the one thing I feel sad about is when people come in and, for example, I call it the saddle rabbit hole, where the people come in with 10 different saddles in the bag, and that can be a lot of money, and they say, which one of these works? Could they have saddle issues? We sort of go, well, we're starting with that one because it isn't in the right place, it can't do its job, you know. So it's just, I think my thing would be, apply some methodology to what you do, change one thing at a time, see how you react. If you change 3 things at once, you're going to get in trouble, I think.
We're quite lucky that we've got you in the UK and you're within commutable distance for us to come and get a bike fit. But what about people that are further afield in America, for example?
Yeah, I mean, so we did a remote fitting during the COVID lockdown because people demanded it, and I've been working on that ever since. And there are now some in-between options between an in-person bike fit, where the wonderful world of technology, you can download something called MyVeloFit, which is an app, and it basically records your data. It's unbelievable how accurate it is. It's using an AI engine to track you. I mean, I say that after someone who's learned for 20 years how to put the markers on and have very expensive kit, but it's really, really refreshing. And I think that's quite exciting because it kind of democratizes bike fit. So you can do that. You can review that yourself, or with the AI brain within the app, or you can say, you know what, I would like Phil Burt to review that, and that comes across. I look at it, you fill in a questionnaire, which is sometimes the most important bit, and it's asking someone the right questions, and that's where the gold is quite often. We match those answers to the objective data and then say, okay, we think this is the route and plan for you, and deliver that, and then you get a little plan come back and you can execute that. So that's the really exciting thing that wasn't there before, you know, and is coming, and it's one of the ways where I think AI is going to actually help the world of bike, cycling.
Superb. I think that's all the questions I've got for you, Phil. Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely. My pleasure, Ant.
Thanks for that, Ant, and big thanks to Phil Burt for sharing those insights. If you're working towards a cycling or triathlon goal, check out our affordable training plans. You'll get structured workouts and rapid coach support, and there's a link in the description if you want to take a look, or head to myprocoach.net. If you like this video, watch the next one on screen now, or if you're up for a longer session, check out our full cycling playlist. And if you like this video, please give it a like, subscribe, and leave us a comment, and we'd love to hear how your bike fitting journey is going.